welcome to the Pitch of Discontent. Yes, this is Owen back again for another solo release roundup. Look, Paige is busy. She's a mum, she's got stuff going on. She can't make it in here to the studio, but luckily you've got me. I will continue to hold it down. I've got an absolutely killer lineup of tracks to talk about this week. We've got a bunch of music news to kind of cover. We've got heaps of shit to talk about. So just strap in, give me an hour of your time, and we'll just get through all of this. And then we can hopefully get to another roundup where Paige actually comes into the studio. But enough about that. We're just going to do the solo roundup. So yeah, it's been a crazy busy week. They had the Grammys. We had some tour announcements. We've had a bunch of killer records that came out last week, which I already have stuff for the feature album to talk about. But we got a bunch of other stuff to talk about. So let's just go down the list. First of all, the Grammys. We need to talk about the Grammys. Now, the big win that everyone was talking about was obviously Turnstile taking out Best Rock Album. And I've seen a lot of commentary on social media, people kind of talking about this and that. And I will say, I've never been a massive Turnstile fan. Uh, I always kind of kept tabs on the project, seen them a bunch of times, and as they kind of eclipsed Trapped Under Ice, they've become the bigger band. That's fine. But the most recent record, Never Enough, didn't really have much to grab me at the time. So no shade to the band or that particular record, but I can see why people are putting them at the top and why they're getting this look in for the Grammys. I, I understand it. But my main quibble is the fact that categorization in the Grammys is kind of broken fundamentally. And I'll just pull up the list here real quick. So for best rock album, Turnstile were up against the Deftones for Private Music, Haim for I Quit, From Zero by Linkin Park, and Youngblood for Idols. Now, for rock music, that's fairly inoffensive. It's a decent kind of rock list, and Turnstile won that category for Never Enough, got their first Grammy. Great, good stuff. Uh, they also were nominated for Best Metal Performance, and the song Birds was nominated against a track from Dream Theater, a track from Ghost, Sleep Token, and Spirit Box. And Turnstile won Best Metal Performance. Not sure if you've ever been to a Turnstile show, but like, not really a metal band by any kind of classification that makes sense. And this is kind of what I mean by categorization being broken, because there are ostensibly bands in the rock category that should have been up for best metal performance, bands in best metal performance that could maybe be in the rock category. It's all kind of just mixed together, and it's a fundamental kind of unseriousness and lack of giving a shit when it comes to these award categories. Uh, Australia is no different. The ARIA categories can be just as kind of vague and ambiguous in terms of who's getting nods for what. So this is more of a grap with award categorization in kind of macro here. But yeah, am I excited for Turnstile to win a Grammy? Yeah, I think that's cool. They're spiritually a hardcore band. They come from the hardcore scene. They play with hardcore bands. They stick to that hardcore ethos. But they are one of the biggest rock bands on the planet. So getting to the level of fame and notoriety that comes with a Grammy nomination and win is a huge effort for them. Stoked for them. But I would like to see those larger institutional uh, level players like the Grammys and award ceremonies kind of giving more of a shit when it comes to which bands are nominated for which category, because that stuff does matter. And I know people on the internet be like, "Oh, who gives a fuck what genre it is?" Like, words are things. These things do matter. And when it comes to who gets a look in and who doesn't for status and award recognition, it does matter. So, anyway, that's my grind my gears section for this week. Uh, in other cool news announcements, we have Poison the Well announcing a Australian tour today with Haywire, which is kind of a crazy lineup, but I'm stoked for that. And this is the band's first time down under in 17 years. One more year, and that absence would be a legal adult. It's fucking crazy to me. I saw the band on the very last tour when they were touring the Tropic Rot record, and it's kind of wild to me that they've managed to take a hiatus, come back at a particular point in time when metalcore is experiencing yet another resurgence and revival, and this particular band can be just as relevant for reasons that you will see further into our show later today. But I'm incredibly excited to see Poison the Well. I can't wait to hear the new record. I can't wait to see them live and hear some of those classic iconic songs live again. Yeah, incredibly pumped. I think that's fucking dope. And finally, before we get into the show, I have a couple of albums that I want to highlight, mainly because there was a very obvious feature album pick for this episode, but I need to shout out some other records that came out last week, which are also very dope. So we have Black Water Holy Light, who put out Not Here, Not Gone. Incredible, doomy, shoegazy, female vocal led kind of mix. If you want dreamy, atmospheric music that still has that like oomph and that kind of bottom end kind of punch to it, you should definitely check this one out. Featured the band on the show a bunch before. Really, really cool record. Really, really love the tone. Speaking of metal, we have the band Urne, that's Urne, and they have dropped their new record. It's called Setting Fire to the Sky. This is really cool progressive metal, kind of in the vein of Mastodon, and Troy Sanders from Mastodon features on the record as a guest vocalist, so there's a spiritual connection going on there. But this is really, really cool. We featured the band on the show, I want to say a year or two ago now. I feel like this record has leveled up their technicality, their songwriting, just the band's kind of ambitiousness writ large. Beautiful cover, great presentation. I just think it's a phenomenal metal record and an early look in for metal records of the year. And then final record I want to shout out is the new one from Joyce Manor. We had Barry on the show last year. That was a cool chat. One of our episodes that people seem to really love. And this new record from Joyce Manor is sick. It's called I Used to Go to This Bar. And it kind of finds them hitting a very like polished level of like power pop production, but still kind of keeping that scrappiness that Joyce are kind of known for. I particularly like the inclusion of a lot of like guitar harmonies and a lot of these like very kind of triumphant little licks at the end because like it's Joyce Manor, so the songs are like barely scratching 2 minutes, but they find ways to kind of weave in these little harmonic licks that I appreciate. Similar to what the Dirty Nil have been doing across their catalog and most recently on their last record. But yeah, if you fuck with any kind of scrappy indie punk stuff, but you want short songs, catchy songs, stuff to put on the jukebox at a bar that you may frequent, that would be one to check out. And okay, that's the Grammys, that's the tour, that's the albums. Should we just get into the tracks for this week? Yeah, Owen, let's do it. Let's go.
Hello, Owen popping in to say, please sign up for the TPD Patreon. This is what helps us keep the lights on and keep the show going. The link is at the bottom of your screen right now, patreon.com/tpdpod. All of our patrons get exclusive access to Side B of our Roundup episodes, so you get a few extra tracks, as well as our feature album discussion and the full show experience. Our patrons also get exclusive access to behind the scenes, off the cuff chit chat from all of our guest episodes. But the patrons are the ones who make all of this happen. For as little as $5 a month, you can sign up to the TPD Patreon, and it really helps us out, really helps us keep the show going. So shout out to all of our patrons, shout out to our executive producer patrons. You're the real ones. And yeah, thank you so much for watching the show.
Okay, so first up for this week, we have an incredible split release that I need to talk about. So we have friends of the show, Ends in Tragedy, young metalcore outfit from Melbourne, who we featured on the show not last week, but the week before. If you haven't seen that episode, Go check it out. I will put a link up here for you. They've come through with a new split release. This is with Sydney metalcore outfit called Dance. The split is called A Dance, A Tragedy, semicolon in the middle there. Beautiful stuff. The split is out now through Kingpin and Uzi's Akimbo. The split features an original song from each band and then 2 covers. So, speaking of Poison the Well, Dance have covered Nerdy by Poison the Well from 1999. Yeah, 1999's The Opposite of December. Classic record, iconic song, huge cover. They do it very, very well. And then for Ends in Tragedy, they're known for their Parkway covers, and now they've got one committed to record. They have Guns for Show, Knives for a Pro, and they put their own little spin on it, their own little Ends in Tragedy flair, and it is fucking mint. It's so good, and I can't wait for people to hear it and to get around this band. They are a promising young talent in the Australian heavy scene, and I can't wait for people to really kind of catch on and give them the props that they deserve. If you're a fan of any late 90s, early 2000s metalcore, you will fuck with this split. It's got you covered, and it's billed as a love letter to what we hold dear. So I'm going to go with the first track on the split. This is the original song from Dance. It's called Saturnine Spring or Saturnine Spring. Not sure how you pronounce that, but that's what I'm rolling with. And let's watch it right now. Man, the kids are all right. What a fucking crazy song. It makes me very nostalgic for years of my life consuming all sorts of metalcore that sounded like this, that presented themselves like this. And I know it makes me feel and sound unk as hell to be like the kids are with it. But like I never stopped listening to this shit. I love this sound. I am a mid 2000s metalcore head fucking through and through. So it does make me feel kind of like warmth and joy to see a new generation of kids find the records that I found at their age and be like, this shit rocks. Let's make a band that sounds like this. I just think that's fucking dope. And if I can do anything as part of the show, I will continue to spotlight bands like Ends in Tragedy and bands like Dance, kids that get it and fuck with it and are doing it justice, putting their own spin on it, and you know, just moshing hard, doing breakdowns for the love of the fucking game. Like, it's so sick. I'm so stoked. I'm like smiling from fucking ear to ear. It's the best shit. Okay. Composing myself. Let's move on to the next track. This is coming from one of my most anticipated records of the year, and at least a day ago, I didn't even know that it was officially coming out, but here we are. We have an announcement for the sophomore LP from Long Island melodic hardcore outfit Koyo. The album is titled Barely Here, and there's barely any information about it, but I know that's coming out on May 8th through Pure Noise Records. This is a 10-track record. It's going to have guest features with Sammy from Drain, friend of the show, shout out, as well as Marisa from Fleshwater. Now, I've talked about Koyo at length on this show, so if you're an old head and you've watched a bunch of the old episodes, you'll know that I fuck with this band a lot. The Long Island melodic hardcore pop punk kind of sound is very influential on me, and you know, Crime and Stereo are one of my like top bands of all time. Koyo's debut LP, Would You Miss It, came out in 2023. It was one of my favorite records of the year. We featured that in our year-end roundup episodes on the show. So, like I said, if you've been with us for a while, you know that I fuck with this band. You know that I'm going to be stoked on them doing a sophomore LP. Let's have a listen to the lead single. This is Koyo, Irreversible.
You deserve a panic attack on an Amtrak train, going far the fuck away from
Well, shit. That is Koyo doing Koyo. Sounds just as primo as it did in 2023. They've been kind of teasing a return and teasing that they've got new stuff to go. They've been hard on the touring circuit, kind of honing the live show. I managed to catch them here in Australia when Last Ride Records brought them out. Cool little small show with a bunch of hardcore bands, but Koyo fucking killed it. Seeing them on a tiny little stage was exactly what I wanted to see. Um, I think Irreversible is definitely kind of a safe pick for a single, not in like any kind of derogatory sense, but it just sounds like the Koyo that you know and love. I don't hear any kind of wild departure in their sound. So that's a promising kind of start. I'd be interesting to see, or interested to hear rather, what else they can do on Barely Here and where else they want to take their sound and, you know, really kind of expand what they're doing on a sophomore record. I know that they've returned to producer John Markson. Shout out to John. I'm sure he's done a phenomenal effort. He's really kind of put his stamp on a bunch of alternative bands over the last couple of years and really kind of has become one of the go-to producers for a bunch of different genres. And I think it's a perfect match because they teamed up on what you Would You Miss It, and that was one of my favorite records of the last few years, probably one of my favorite records of all time. Incredible record. I love it to death, front to back. And I'm excited to hear a new one. So let's fucking go. Next track we have for side A, we've got a new album incoming from Birmingham metalcore outfit ERRA. This one is called Silence Outlives the Earth. It's due on March 6th through Unified. This one follows on from 2024's Cure LP. We had JT Cavey on the show when they were here in Melbourne touring that record, and you can go watch that episode right now. It's a fun one. I put the call out to r/metalcore on Reddit for people to ask him questions, and we chopped it up. It was very fun. Shout out to JT. He's a real one. The new record is said to concern, quote, existence and the human condition, and it features the 2025 singles Gore of Being and Echo Sonata that are already pre-released. I've got a quote here from guitarist Jesse Cash talking about the most recent single from the record. He says, Further Eden was a song that guitarist Clint Tuslin started and we built upon in the studio. The pentatonic leaning roots the song into a lighter energy than we typically employ, and the song feels like a fresh form of expression from the band. We were specific about wanting the music video and accompanying visuals to reflect that lightness. Interesting. A typically very heavy band, very kind of bludgeoning, kind of intense band. So contrasting that intensity with lightness, I think is a cool choice. But let's jump in and have a listen. This is ERRA, Further Eden. Hell yeah. Classic ERRA. It's got all of the elements that you know and love and the stuff that they've really kind of cemented as their like signature kind of range with this kind of like heavy metalcore sound. But I can hear some of the lightness that Jesse's talking about and the airiness in the vocal delivery, having that chorus kind of like really hit that upper register. And in the clip I saw like JT was doing a lot of like some clean kind of like backing deliveries for a lot of like the verse bits, and then obviously coming in with his like heavy vocal right before the chorus. Uh Interesting to see how they're kind of like playing off each other as like dueling vocalists. Um that's kind of new for them and kind of interesting, and I want to see that more live and on record. Um this is an incredibly cool teaser to kind of show where the band is going to go on this new record. I really enjoyed Gore of Being. I thought Echo Sonata was great, but I think of all the singles, Further Eden is definitely my favorite. That kind of like sliding scale breakdown, glitchy thing towards the end there was insane. So that's going to go fucking hectic live. Yeah, stoked for that. Let's move on to the next one. A group called Final Gasp. This is a death rock outfit from the States. They're back with a killer new record. This one is called New Day Symptoms, and it was produced by Arthur Rizek, and we'll see a release on February 27th via Relapse Records. This one expands on the band's like grim and moody template of kind of death rock that they put on their acclaimed 2023 debut, Morning Moon. A lot of bands coming back from the 2023 album cycle with a new record in 2026. Interesting. I have a quote here from Final Gasp vocalist Jake Murphy. He talks about New Day Symptoms and he says, "A lot of New Day Symptoms was written in an outside perspective. What could have happened if things were different, but ultimately it didn't end that way. You can't change what's already been done, so you just have to move on. It just means it's a part of who you are now." Very prophetic, Jake. And I have a kind of note here about the second single, which I'm about to play for you now, which is called Burials of Birth. This one finds Murphy recounting a tragic story of a homeless man that was living off the grid that he encountered during his youth. And the man's tent encampment was burned down by the police, and he froze to death in the process of trying to rebuild it, which is awful and a very kind of tragic story. Unfortunately, that's something that is all too prevalent in Western society, is seeing homeless people and not being able to do anything about it, and then watching them get brutalized and victimized by the state, and for no other reason than the crime of not having a home and living and daring to exist in public space. Even around here in Melbourne, in the places that I take Reese for afternoon and evening walks, we see homeless people kind of living in tents and makeshift kind of setups, off the footpath, in the scrub, in the woods. So I mean, like, it's a daily thing. You see it all the time, and it really does kind of drive home just how privileged we are to have a home and a roof over our heads and money to afford equipment to do this pod and upload it to YouTube. So I'm aware of that privilege, and I wish that there was more that we would do as a society to look after the unhoused and the homeless people and the people who are less fortunate than us. Yeah, maybe in a better world, we would actually give a shit and do something about that. Let's have a listen to the song, though, on a lighter note. This is Final Gasp, Burials of Birth. Yeah, this one's sick. It's got a vibe that kind of blends a whole bunch of different stuff together. Like, I know, like, the death rock label kind of speaks to like a more like goth influenced rock sound that leans on a bunch of different textures, but I know that the Final Gasp guys come from like a hardcore background, so I can hear like a little bit of like hardcore punk intensity in the drums and in the bass, but there's also like a bit of a post-punk kind of sheen to the guitars, and then Jake's vocals are obviously kind of like got that 80s kind of reverbed kind of sound to it. Makes it kind of have that nostalgic kind of tone. I think altogether it sounds incredible. I listened to Morning Moon, the band's debut record, and really, really enjoyed it, but I don't remember too much about it, and I honestly haven't been back to it. So I'm wondering if on the new record, New Day Symptoms, that there will be something that's a little bit stickier, something that gets kind of earwormed into my head a little bit more. I've certainly enjoyed this single, and I've definitely been listening to Burials of Birth quite a lot. There was another lead single release from the record, I believe called The Apparition, which was dope as well. So go check that out if you're interested. But yeah, excited to hear this record and stoked to have Final Gasp back. Let's go to the last track for side A this week. So this one is a new find on my radar. This one thanks to the almighty YouTube algorithm. So shout out to the YouTube gods for deigning to throw this little crumb my way. This is a Glasgow rock band called Dead Pony. They put out their debut album, Ignore This, in 2024. They got a nod for Scottish Album of the Year. So shout out to the band. That's pretty cool. The track that I'm going to play for you is called Eat My Dust. And this is a very catchy, kind of like pop-oriented rock tune that does lean on some heavier moments, but it has an incredibly sticky chorus. And I found myself at multiple times today and throughout the week just like doing the dishes and cleaning bottles for Audrey and various things around the house, having this particular chorus just float into my head. Incredibly sticky chorus, and it is definitely stuck in my head. And I just think that's a testament to the power of songwriting. Sometimes a new band can pen a new chorus that will stick with you whether you like it or not. I have a quote here from Blair Crichton from the band explaining that the new single, Eat My Dust, was, quote, written about moving on from negative things in your past, bettering yourself, and letting the haters choke on your dust cloud as you pass them. We had fun leaning into heavier influences on this song. The drums and guitar have a metalcore vibe to them, which is something we want to explore more in the future. Hell yeah, let's go. This is Dead Pony, Eat My Dust.
Can't be controlled with these. You think I'm so naive. Yet another one bites the dust now. Let me show you how we run this town. Just keep it to yourself.
Word. I love that. I think it's sick. I think it definitely borrows from those heavier elements, like Blair was saying, without kind of like going too far into them. And they've managed to like weld or scaffold that onto their admittedly fairly straightforward pop kind of rock sound in a way that doesn't feel like forced or weird. Like it makes sense that they would go for, you know, some heavier kind of guitar riffs and really kind of lean into the intensity that that kind of style can offer. And yeah, man, that chorus, so fucking catchy. Just something to be said for writing a real goddamn earworm, because I've never heard of the band, had no idea about their debut record. All I saw was thumbnail, the name, and I was like, okay, I'll buy it. And from the minute that I clicked on it, that guitar line just like got stuck in my head. And as soon as the chorus hit, I was like, oh, this is a tune. This is a banger right here. So stoked for Dead Pony. I'm sure they're kind of working on a follow-up to that debut record. Not sure when that's coming through, but I'll definitely check it out. Let's move on now to side B. All right, first up for side B, this is another new band on my radar. This is French post-hardcore outfit Mascara. First time feature on the show. They're coming through with their debut full-length, Going Postal. This one comes out on March 13th through Fever Ltd. This is the first release from the band since a release from 2022 called HLA11TF. Not sure what that's referring to, but cool. And they announced their comeback with a single last year called Nova Arda. And I have a new single to show you. This one is called Marrow. And I've got a quote from the band about it, saying that marrow speaks of the wounds we inherit without choosing them, the burden passed down from generation to generation. It's the idea that pain doesn't disappear, it changes form, hides beneath the skin, and finds new ways to resurface. The song evokes memory, generational trauma, and the impossibility of ever truly freeing ourselves from what has been passed down to us. Damn, that's intense. And yeah, pain can definitely scar, and wounds can run deep through entire bloodlines. So there is definitely something to be said for something that can sink all the way through to the marrow. Thought-provoking. I will ruminate on that as we listen to the track. This is Mascara, Marrow. I love it when you find a band that can really take you on a journey with a song, and there are so many like elements and twists and turns in kind of dynamic range and contrast going on in Marrow that on first listen I wasn't really prepared for. And I can remember like putting it on in my headphones and I was out walking Reese or doing something and the song came on and I was like, wait, what is this band? What is this song? And just being kind of swept away as it kind of moves through the different movements, that really kind of heavy bridge section, the way that the chorus elements kind of like build to their crescendo and then kind of like pop through the mix. Just a beautiful, beautiful song. Lyrically as well, it's just like kind of stunning. Um, the parts that I've got here are like, I wear the wounds of my father like shadows stitched to the bone. They whisper through the silence in a language all their own. I wear the wounds of my father and they surface back in the quiet of the evening when the moon begins to rise. I'm tracing all these hidden bruises in the corners of my eyes. Just very evocative, very kind of resonant of the themes that we were talking about with generational trauma, pain, wounds, scars. Just, I love it when everything kind of clicks and aesthetically, sonically, thematically, excuse me, everything is kind of working in sync. Um, yeah, phenomenal tune from Mascara, and I'm incredibly excited to hear the record. Um, Definitely a band to watch, and I love having new finds like this on the show. It's one of the reasons we do this thing. Let's move on to the next one for side B. So this was a late inclusion to the show for this week. I got an email from a good PR friend of the show, shout out to James, who wanted to put on this new indie rock outfit called Teen Suicide. They're not necessarily a new outfit, but they're certainly new to me. The band are taking a fairly big swing on this new record. It's called Nude Descending Staircase Headless. And what caught my eye is that it was recorded by Mike Sapone, who's worked with Taking Back Sunday, Oso Oso, Symbols Eat Guitars, a little band that no one should really be talking about anymore, but brand new. He worked with a lot of the later brand new records. But working with Mike, the band are putting out a new record through Run for Cover Records. It comes out on April 17th. The band are kind of known for doing mostly home recordings and going for the kind of lo-fi bedroom pop sound. So this marks their first ever foray into the producer record, the studio record, the big rock record. And man, they're getting results. These songs sound huge. The record is billed as aggressive, catchy, intimate, sweeping, and dynamic, which for an indie rock record is quite compelling to me. I'm thinking of the Ringlets record from last year, The Lord is My German Shepherd. That is an indie rock record that I would describe as aggressive, catchy, intimate, sweeping, and dynamic. So, yeah, I'm interested to see if Teen Suicide can offer the same level of dynamic swing. But let's have a listen. This is Teen Suicide, Idiot. Well, that was definitely a lot. That was a track, as best I can tell, of like three kind of distinct movements kind of stitched together with a music video that I could only describe as like kind of eerily captivating. Definitely dark and grim, but I was kind of engaged the whole way through. Sonically, like this kind of heavy, more aggressive indie rock sound kind of sounds like a lot of what Sainthood reps were doing on some of the older records. It kind of has that like grungy, earthy bottom end kind of quality to it, but still kind of hitting the standard kind of indie guitar rock kind of template. I definitely fuck with it. I think it's interesting, captivating. I don't really know what comes next, and I had no idea where that song was going the whole way through. Um, Fascinating, and I'm definitely taking notice. Let's go to our last track for side B before we get into the feature album. This is another new band on my radar, kind of stacking the show with a bunch of new bands, so I hope that's enjoyable for you. This band I saw come up on a flyer for the Callous Dowboys. Shout out to the Callous Dowboys. They're doing a Heaven Across Europe and UK tour. This band was one of the support bands on that tour, and I was like, I've never heard of that band, but if they're touring with the Callous Cowboys, they must be good. And yes, yes, they are. They're great. This is math rockers Love Rarely. They hail out of the Leeds alternative scene in the UK. Their forthcoming debut album is called Pain Travels and it catalogues the band's collective experience of, quote, family trauma, toxic households, and the complexity of navigating adulthood with scars that shape but no longer define them. Something spiritually in tune with the Mascara track that we were listening to earlier in the show. This record, Pain Travels, is out on April 10th through Big Scary Monsters. There's a bunch of singles already out from the record, but I'm going to play you the most recent one. So let's have a listen to Love Rarely, Will.
Pick up the stars and run! You can watch me move on!
I'm kind of speechless and lost for words, really, but I love when a track can really just kind of like defy expectations. Because, like, when I hear like math rock coming out of an alternative scene in the UK, I have like a particular kind of frame in mind of what that would sound like. And then going in cold with Love Rarely and not really knowing anything about them apart from that Callous Cowboys connection, it, it is kind of surprising to me what they offered with this track. Um, Definitely that chunky, very staccato, like kind of math rock kind of bit at the start with the heavy vocal, but then that kind of bridge and switch up towards that kind of like beautiful crescendo outro, glorious backing vocals from the guitarist there. Unreal. Just really, really compelling hook to the end of the song that really kind of elevates all that intensity that they front loaded it with. Man, so, so good. I'm very excited to hear Pain Travels. I think it's going to be a fucking great record. And with that, we are now at the end of side B. So thank you for rocking with me to the end of the show. But wait. Don't go anywhere just yet. I have a feature album to get into. And if you've been following along, listening to the show all the way back to when we were doing audio only on Spotify, this is a band that you will know we have talked about for years. So you'll want to stick around. Let's just jump straight into the feature album right now. Boss, we're here. Let's go. So, Softcult. Friends of the show. We've had Mercedes and Phoenix on the show before. I had another chat with just Mercedes, but we've had the band two-time friend of the show. Canadian right gaze duo. Their debut LP, When a Flower Doesn't Grow, is out now through Easy Life Records. This album is a long time coming. The band started in 2020. I've been writing about them and watching them since like 2021, 2022. They've dropped a bunch of EPs, some of which I've reviewed for publications, talked about on the show. Like, there is lore here. There is Softcult lore here. The build up to this album is probably one of the most anticipated debut records that I can remember in years. The band have already done so much before this record even comes out. They've toured Australia a bunch. They've been to Southeast Asia. They've toured the States. Like, they're a very accomplished band, and they haven't even put out the debut record until now, which is crazy to me. But the record is here. We can talk about it in full. That's exactly what I'm going to do. If you're not aware of who Softcult are, they're an Ontario based sibling duo. Mercedes and Phoenix on horn. Their previous releases, most notably 2023's See You in the Dark EP and then 2024's Heaven, kind of hinted at the creative growth of the group, fusing their alt rock, grunge, shoegaze, riot girl punk attitude with very introspective and deeply personal lyricism. When a Flower Doesn't Grow is very much in that vein, mainly because it is a pivotal record for Mercedes, who went through one of the most influential and pivotal moments of her life. She ended a 9-year relationship, came out as queer, and has been kind of internalizing and confronting cycles of oppression that she's both experienced and is observing out in the world. And the theme of the record comes from a Dutch author, Alexander Den Heijer. I'm not sure if I've pronounced that correct. Apologies, I'm not Dutch. And the quote is, "When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower." So Mercedes has kind of twisted that and borrowed that in a paraphrase way for the title of the record. But I do think that it is kind of very indicative of who Softcult are as a band and as a collaborative endeavor between two siblings. You know, they have really gone through journeys of self discovery and personal growth through their time as Softcult, and you can hear that journey of self discovery in their music and on this record. When a Flower Doesn't Grow, self produced, self recorded. They're a fiercely independent band. So everything that you're getting is as raw and personal and upfront as humanly possible. Now, I've got some quotes here from the previous singles, or from the songs rather, that I'm going to play for you. But I feel like we should just jump into one now. Then we can kind of talk about the influences and feedback on the songs on the other side. So I'm going to play you my favorite song from the record, straight up. This is Softcult, I Held You Like Glass. What a gorgeous, gorgeous song. It's really indicative of this thing that Softcult do so well, infusing all of their influences and really kind of focusing on atmosphere and building a sense of apprehension and narrative tension. Mercedes' vocals are incredibly subdued throughout that entire track, you know, compared to some of the more like in your face riot girl kind of anthems that they've done before. You know, this one is very like understated and plaintive, but it just builds and builds and builds with this like swirling kind of maelstrom of guitar layers and building kind of tension. And then it all kind of just like pops into nothing. And it all just kind of like builds and builds and builds. And there's never really any kind of like sustained kind of like hold or release. And I just think that's a inspired choice to kind of do a song that is ostensibly about self-honesty and anxious attachment and letting go of things that will harm you if you hold them too tightly. And I can almost kind of hear in the instrumentation and in the way that the song is constructed that it's this kind of sense of like holding, 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 and then letting it go. And I just think that's a very kind of inspired choice and a very kind of like creative way of taking a lyrical and thematic idea and pushing that into the sonic texture of a song. That's why I love Softcult so much. There are so many added dimensions to what they do outside of, you know, their live show, the lyrics, the presentation, the zine, the political messaging. All of it is there. All of it is very dynamic and detailed. But when it comes together, it can be more than the sum of its parts. Final song I want to play for you is the track directly following I Held You Like Glass, which is Queen of Nothing. So you're getting track 6 and 7 from the record consecutively. Queen of Nothing is a kind of like nod to the more kind of empowerment ethos of the band. And it's basically a refutation of patriarchal expectation that puts women and, like female presenting people in a position where they have to constantly be at odds with who they are and they can never really be comfortable in themselves. They have to constantly be subjected to the wants, needs, desires, opinions of other people, and wanting to be everything to everyone means that you're ultimately nothing to yourself. And this song is a rejection of all of that and saying, like, no, you can be who you are, you can matter, you can be important, you don't have to be everything to everyone. And to do so is exhausting and detrimental to your health. It also happens to be one of the catchiest songs on the record and is definitely a nod to some of the older tracks from older EPs that Softcult put together. So it's another favorite for me. This is Softcult, Queen of Nothing. And there you have it, Queen of Nothing. Incredible visuals, very striking, very intense. The message of the song not entirely subtle when it comes to the music video, but I wouldn't expect anything less from the Arnhorn sisters. So incredible. I'm so stoked that they've got a debut record that's out in the world, and we have a whole bunch of tracks to add to their already extensive catalog. Like I said, kind of before we played the songs, like they've already accomplished so much. It's not necessarily that this debut is really something that uh, allows them to have something to prove. If anything, it's more just a affirmation and confirmation of where they are and why they're so deserving of this particular status that they've achieved, because they are one of the great talents of shoegaze, alternative, grunge revival, whatever kind of subgenre you want to lump in. Like they can do it well, and they can do it better than most. And I'm just incredibly stoked for people to be riding the soft cult wave, because I've been on there for years and it feels good, and I'm stoked for them. So congrats on an incredible debut record. I'm going to wrap up the show there because that's pretty much all the tracks that we've got for you. But let me know, what are you listening to? What's new? What's good? Do you have any records that you're looking forward to? Drop them in the comments. Let me know what you're looking forward to. Let me know if there's something I should check out. I need new bands on my radar. Send me music. I'm all about that. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next release roundup. Who knows? Maybe Paige will show up. Maybe I can already see her. She's on the baby monitor, currently taking care of our baby daughter. So it's not like she doesn't have stuff to do, folks. But maybe she'll be here next week. Who knows? I'll catch you later. Peace.